Okay, this one is the Magnus board, and it's fizzling out. Vidit had some very scary past pawns. We should mention Magnus has the extra knight now, but not the most impressive knight in the world. And more importantly, pawns are disappearing. So if he can win that knight for one of the black pawns, this should be safe. This should fizzle out to a draw.
Well, let's point out, if that white pawn, you know, if you're able to trade that off or somehow win it and trade it off for one of your own pawns, that's a draw on the spot, right? And as you said, with it trying to distract that white knight, you know, keep it inactive, defending that A pawn, that very strong pawn that he's got to control that square. It's all about trying to trade the pawns on the other side of the board, try to push them and get rid of the last remaining pawn that Magnus has. And if that gets off the board, that's a theoretical draw.
Yeah, a maneuvering game at this point. Less than 20 seconds on the clock here for Vidit. Magnus has 50 seconds to work with on his side. So just a little bit more time in his camp, but both players under pressure.
It would be a great start for Vidit with the black pieces to get a draw against the world #1.
Yeah, especially because, as we saw a lot earlier, his opening wasn't the best Vidit. He was down significantly on the clock very early, but it looks like he's holding this one for now. We should mention only white can win. It should be a draw, but only white can really win this game because he has the knight, barring any crazy turns. The problem for Magnus is that the white rook is tied down, ultimately defending its own pawn, the one potential future queen. You need to keep that pawn alive to win this game, and the king and the knight kind of stuck, protecting each other, but also stopping this black pawn.
So with that in mind, if a draw, simply a draw is my goal for Vidit inside of blank, how am I approaching it? Am I trying to set up a position where repetition will happen, or is it just trade pieces to the point where there's not enough remaining for a victory?
Yeah, I think that latter option, ideally, just trade as much as possible. I think his plan is actually to just march the black king over to nudge away the white rook, and then he's going to go hunting for the remaining white pawn. And okay, Magnus moves his king across. Magnus not looking too happy. He's the one spending the time here. Vidit just keeping his rook intact with the white knight. The white knight and king just totally stuck. And yeah, frustration for Magnus.
We'll know, right, in the next move how ambitious he's feeling. He could bring the king back from where it just moved right now, and we could see a repetition happen at this point. But knowing Magnus, that's not the name of his game. He always wants to play for more. He's the one who's putting the pressure, and he's going to make Vidit sweat for that final remaining pawn, and Vidit goes for it. I don't really see a way for you to actually keep that alive. This might just be ending any moment. You could pick up the black pawn. Vidit will return the favor. You've got to be a little careful, though, right now, where you move your king. Don't walk into any dangerous knight checks.
Yep, he pushes his king back. The pawn disappears. And the big question here is, are we going to see Magnus Carlsen try to grind this out? Even without the two black pawns, as Tanya mentioned, it is a dead draw, a very well-known draw. Not a difficult one either. You just keep pinning the white knight, and there's no way white will ever be able to checkmate the black king. But stranger things have happened.
Yeah, entertaining the idea of playing it a little bit more.
I've been in these situations, you know, in competitive chess where your opponent, you know that this position is a draw. You know, a rook and knight versus a rook, or a rook and knight versus a bishop, yes. But it also adds to the pressure because you have to prove it. And then it kind of plays on your mind, you know, that, yes, I'm here, I've got this, I've done it so far. And if I bungle up right now, I'm just going to look like such a fool. And trust me, I've bungled it up enough number of times to know that when you're playing, you know, it's easy to analyze from here, but when you're sitting there on the board, it's a completely different dynamic.
Yeah, the knight jumps in with a check on the king.
Yeah, the black king looks a bit lonely right now. Not too many pieces around it. And yeah, you've got to be slightly careful where you go. He steps back to the back rank. Still plenty of checking opportunities for black to disrupt the white king and knight formation. And this should still be relatively safe, but he is literally living life on the edge here, Vidit with his king. What normally happens here is that Magnus might take 50 moves to win one of the black pawns. It might take another 20, 30 moves to win the other black pawn. And then it feels like you've made progress, even though it's still objectively a draw. And psychologically, that can be difficult for the defending player. But Vidit, I mean, he's so accomplished, Tanya. He's so calm these days. It's hard to see him ever letting this one slip.
Yeah, but Magnus is such a grinder, jumping for another knight check just for you at home to know this is our only remaining board still in play. We've had two more results taking place over on Richard Rapport versus Pragnananda. Rapport actually taking a decisive victory there. So the first of our two last-minute replacements getting a nice decisive victory to kick off his round robin, and Nodirbek Abdusatorov did manage to convert in his decisive win over Vincent Keimer. So we've had quite a few decisive results, only one draw so far, and staring at what looks to be like another draw in our first round.
Might be too soon to call a result on this one, though. I mean, I would be surprised if Magnus doesn't play this for another 50 moves. But on the counter side of that, it is the first game. David, you know Magnus best, right? What do you think is going on in his mind? Does he want to push this out till the very end and play for the next, I don't know how many moves? Or is he going to bail out pretty soon and say, you know, it's a long day of chess ahead of us?
He will not agree a draw unless he really has to, unless he feels he's exhausted all possible tricks. I don't think he looks his most determined, Magnus. I think he realizes, okay, it's just going to most likely be halved out this game. But it is round one, as you mentioned, Tanya, and Magnus is traditionally a very slow starter. So playing yourself into form, this is something I've done countless tournaments. Round one, I'm playing a lower rated opponent. I should be a favorite on paper, but it takes me 80 moves, 100 moves. But by the time you've had kind of your hand make those moves, you've warmed up, you feel fresh, and round two is where it really begins. So
I'm going to say it again. It's not the most flattering angle for the player playing with the black pieces. Magnus just looks overpowering right there.
It's the chairs. His chair's just much lower, right, if you compare them. I think Vidit just choosing to sit closer to the board.
This is looking, again, a little dangerous for the Black King. Like you say, it shouldn't be a checkmate, but I'm looking at the White King stepping forward, one more space to start to close off any exit for the Black King, and then eventually that Rook sliding down to the final rank there.
Well, for White, the hope is combine your King, Knight, and Rook to set up a mating net around Vidit's King. But anytime the White King does move forward, Vidit will make sure that he has a check with his own Rook, driving that King away and escaping from any mating patterns that might appear on the board.
Yeah. Essentially, you just give checks, as Tanya mentioned, and you try and pin the White Knight. If the White Knight is stuck, then the three pieces can't combine to mobilize and deliver that checkmate. So even sitting with the King on the back rank, which normally isn't recommended in endgames, you can defend passively here and hold. And still Vidit posing those questions to Magnus. Is he going to try and play on? Ooh, checkmate. Almost threatened there. The White Knight was threatening to jump up, give a check. But there we go. The pin on the Knight fixes Magnus's attacking pieces. No way forward.
And still no mate threatened, so this could be Vidit's moment to think about perhaps starting to push his own pawns, deflect the white pieces a bit. Looking at Magnus on the screen, it does feel that he might not be in for a long one. Mm-hmm. Or is he just settling in?
He's just getting started. Magnus, he's maybe playing mind games on his future opponents. The longer he plays here, the longer his future opponents have to hang out, wait around in the green room. Delaying the start of round two, of course, for everyone. But yeah, endgame masterclasses from Magnus. This is a free lesson. How to probe, how to push, how to torture your opponents.
And that last move is exactly how you probe and torture, right? You question with it. Where do you want to put your king? Burn those extra seconds on the clock making those decisions. And he might ask those questions a few times. One pawn picked up. The 50-move rule has been reset.
Mm-hmm. Another pawn push from Vidit. That pawn will be stopped in its tracks. The white rook will slide behind. And the black king is frozen. The black rook is the only piece that can really move. Yeah, we continue. We go on.
Not too much time to work with, though, here still, Vidit. 20 seconds on the clock. Now, given the speed of the last few moves, Magnus has actually worked his way back up to a full minute on the clock. Vidit about to drop below 10 seconds here, needing to find an answer. And like you say, it just appears like the black rook, the only piece that can move, will unpin the knight from the king and take control of the b-file. And
this is a very important game now for Vidit. You know, when we were talking about the Hikaru-Yan matchup and Hikaru losing that first game, you said it's a very long tournament. It's a very long round robin. There's still a lot of chess left to be played. But what happens to a player is when you've been defending for this long against Magnus successfully, right? And if he fails to hold this at this point, that really plays games with you going ahead. If Vidit is able to finish this in a draw, you know, to get the job done, that's a huge confidence boost. That would really change his whole approach to the remaining games today. So I think it's absolutely critical for Vidit to make sure that he finishes this. He finishes this in a way that he can start the next round properly, because after fighting for so long, for so many moves, it doesn't go your way. It can be a really big mental battle to overcome.
I gotta admit, it feels like it's getting, from my perspective, it's getting scarier and scarier for that Black King. The space is getting slowly constricted around him there as he's tucked in that corner. Of course, the Black Rook will jump back to defend, offer the trade, but will instead sacrifice his own pawn to get a little breathing room.
Yeah, this is not how Vidit planned it. He would have liked a less painful way to a draw here, but he's going to slide his rook across. He's still going to give checks from the side. This is still technically a draw, but yeah, Magnus now does have 50 moves after that last pawn capture. This is it. That was move 87, so move 137 is likely where the game will end if Vidit can defend for that long. But Magnus, he's going to try and put Vidit under so much pressure that eventually there might be only one move to save the game. And he's going to hope that Vidit only has 5-10 seconds on the clock to make that decision. So he's going to play around, wait around, try to play with his food, and Vidit's going to have to hold strong.
Yeah, and the pressure really is building up right now, right? Vidit is really hoping to give a check on the next move and try and drive Magnus's king away, get more breathing space for his own king to move forward. And both players know that this is a draw, and this has to be held, but you still have to prove it on the board. Predictions, guys. Does Vidit hold this, or is it going to be a Magnus win?
I'm going Magnus win. Ooh, I'm going Magnus win.
Apparently there's only one move to save the game. The Black King had to move there before the White Knight and Rook moved in for the kill. He found it.
Okay.
Only move for Vidit.
Maybe I should have waited to get the prediction.
But there are going to be many more such opportunities that Magnus will create for himself, where once again Vidit will have to find the absolute precise move. So you're saying that Magnus gets this done.
Yeah.
David?
I think a few years ago, Vidit, when he was maybe a bit less confident against the top players, he might have struggled a bit more. But these days, he's so calm, so confident, so strong, Vidit. I don't think the psychological pressure is going to get to him. I think draw. Tanya, break the tie.
Oh gosh, the tiebreaker. I mean, Magnus's king, knight, rook, they're really closing in, but I'll go with a Vidit hold in this one. You know, he looks calm. He's adding up those seconds with the bonus time on the clock. The king has, at least for now, managed to step out. Vidit doesn't look absolutely hassled. And you know that move where he found the only way to keep the balance? And he played it quickly.
Yeah.
So he's feeling confident about his chances here. I'm going for a draw in this one.
All right, fair enough, fair enough. We'll see, though. Still plenty of moves left to be made. Magnus going to hydrate. That's good. You got plenty of rounds left to go as well. Let's not forget there are 5 more games for each of these players following this first round in just day 1.
We're going to be here all week just with the round robin stage. This has already moved 92. And if that keeps happening, the players are going to keep us busy for hours. Magnus, in the meantime, blocks any potential checks with his knight. He's trying to do things a bit weirdly. Normally, rooks are long-range pieces, so rooks check from afar, but in order to keep the Black King caged, he's had to go very, very short distance with his pieces here. The rook protects the knight, and a bit of a standoff right now.
It is, right? Especially because Magnus's pieces feel a bit offside. The winning strategy or creating those chances where your opponent has only one move is if White's king, knight, and rook can combine themselves and come closer to Vidit's king. But it's a few moves away right now. You first have to unpin yourself, find a way for the knight to come to the center of the board, and then start threatening. And as Magnus does that, he's running out of moves as well. How many moves to go before the 50-move rule comes into play, David?
Still plenty. Still over 40 moves left for Magnus to torture Vidit here. But look how the Black King is running. The key idea is to run while White's knight, White's rook are busy to try and run away. But Magnus is trying to keep that escape close. He's going to use his rook to kick the Black King back to one of the edges of the board. So still some hard work. But again, good technique from Vidit, keeping the rook far away. Now he's going to check the White King and break the White attacking formation. No real way for the White Knight to shield any checks. The White Knight needs to be here, really, but it takes too long to get there. As the king steps back.
And as a defender in this position, it's so important to not get into the forest of which move where should I go with my king? Yes, you've got these options, but you don't sit and start calculating. As long as you can see that there's no direct path, you make a decision and you play fast. The problem happens the mind starts sort of seeing these ghosts when you spend too much time deciding which square to escape with your king when there's a check. So just general rule of thumb, if your king and the rook is far away, there's no immediate fork, make a decision and play it.
Yeah, and that goes to your earlier point about what Magnus is looking for, David. He's looking for that one moment where he's got Vidit in time trouble, and he has to make a crucial decision, and maybe just makes a singular misstep, opening up a path to victory for Magnus Carlsen. Either way, Vidit now 13 seconds on the clock with a little bounce.
James, he has to hold this one. Vidit must hold this one. If for a chess player, if you let go of this, it's really tough to play your next game. And then you go into a tilt.
Yeah, you'd be kicking yourself to let this one go when, as we've stated before, both these players know that with perfect play, this is a draw.
Yeah, it's like a badge of honor knowing how to draw this one in your sleep, basically, as a grandmaster. But of course, when the lights, the cameras are on you, and especially the first game of any tournament, there's always going to be some nerves. Vidit's done everything perfectly so far. Great result incoming for him if he can continue to do so. But Magnus has centralized the knight. No more checks against the white king. The white rook will, again, find a new angle to try and kick the black king to the back rank.
And what a moment this is for Vidit, right? He makes his debut into the Grand Slam tour here in Paris with his crushing victory in the qualifiers. And this is his first game as a married man. His wife is right there in the playing hall watching this happen, and it's against none other than Magnus Carlsen. So getting this draw has got to be feeling good for Vidit.
Yeah, thrown in at the deep end here. Black against Magnus round one. What better way to warm up? But there we go. He's calmly defending. Note how he's just getting ready to run away with the king. He wants to use his king to run, and he'll often outrun the white king, which often needs to protect its knight. So it's a bit slower in the foot race here. And still holding the draw despite being cut off.
And speaking of the matchups in general, I think it's a good opportunity for us to explain to the viewers at home that obviously the matchups were of random draw. Yesterday at our dinner, we had each of the players drawn by random cards, and then seeded randomly as a result. 1 playing 12, 2 playing 11, and so on and so forth. Of course, given that it's a round robin, we will have 11 games played where every single player manages to meet each other. But like you say, what a way to kick things off up against Magnus Carlsen as your #1 match.
Yeah, and the white king goes one way, Vidit slides the other way. Again, great instructive technique. For everyone at home learning how to defend this endgame, it's a key one to have in your arsenal. It's nice to know what endgames you can safely bail out into. For example, if all things go wrong, pull that emergency brake. Yeah, this is great technique. The black king goes one way, and yeah, whichever the way the white king goes, you run the other way. The black rook now cuts off Magnus from making progress as well. Extra bonus. He's getting closer. 30 moves now. 30-move countdown begins for Magnus to try and win this game.
And he's trying to reroute that knight to another square at the center of the board, just creating a path for his own king to come closer towards Vidit's king, corner that king, and only then can you start threatening checkmates. The other big takeaway that's been from this endgame on how to defend, technique 101, you said walk away with your king on the opposite direction of the attacker, is also keep your king and the rook as far away as possible. Only bring it to defend, to become your king's neighbor when necessary, because you never want to walk into a fork.
Yeah, getting forked. Worst feeling in chess. And,
been there, done that.
Yeah, we've all been there, especially in blitz, especially in this type of time control, but Vidit holding his nerve well. And now the white rook didn't quite make it on the other angle. He's trying to find new paths forward, but yeah, black just doesn't need to worry at all. As long as you've got the white knight pinned, nothing can go wrong. I say that.
King stepping forward.
Yeah, he's going to have to choose a side of the board. Both sides, I think, are fine.
I don't think any of the other players expected round one to go on this long. We're just getting started here.
Yeah.
That's a good point, right? All 10 other players are sitting off probably in their respective green rooms watching this game play out, but thinking about the fact that they've got 5 more battles to wage before the day is over.
Yeah, and sometimes friends, family, they ask me, how do you spend so much time playing chess each day? And I'm like, I was only playing a blitz game, only playing a 10-minute rapid game. This is a 10-minute rapid game, and we've been going an hour nearly. So, yeah, chess never ceases to surprise, and there's beauty in this type of marathon chess.
But you know, that moment, it feels like it's coming closer because Magnus has managed to sort of, in a way, corner Vidit's king to that final rightmost line rank on the board. He blocks the check. And Vidit somewhere will have to be careful. He's threatening a checkmate in one. If the rook slides over, that will be game over. So Vidit needs to move the king.
He has to come forward. Only move to save this game is to bring the king forward 1 square to h5. Going back loses.
Oh,
He goes back. Back. And now it's over. If Magnus just brings
Magnus sees it.
What's
king
the
forward, king f7, and it's checkmate next move. Guaranteed.
There's no defense,
Oh,
and he
he's
does
made
it. He does it.
Vidit has blundered. Magnus is about to win.
Oh, you know what?
Wow. The
No, Vidit's
recognition
checking.
sets in. That will be it.
Vidit's checking if they've completed the 50-move rule. If the next move hits the 50-move mark, it's a draw. Vidit will say, I play my king. Is it 50 moves since the last pawn was picked up, David?
Unfortunately for Vidit, the answer is no. At move 87, the last pawn disappeared. This is move 116, so not even 30 moves.
He's going to resign then.
Yep.
Yeah, he's about to get checkmated. He gave his rook too few checking squares. He should have gone from the other side with his rook.
Yeah, our incredible arbiters stepping in to make sure that
And
everything goes the way it should.
Vidit with a shake of his head. His appeal has been denied. 50 move is far away. He's about to resign and lose this marathon game, and this one's going to hurt.
Magnus gets the extra 2 minutes for a false claim. Magnus takes the win. Vidit resigns. Heartbreaking. He was so close to the draw. Did everything right for 114 moves. But on move 115, the blunder eventually came.
Yeah, great respect shown between the players as the handshake is extended, and quickly talking about what the options were there. Magnus, I think, even pointing out perhaps the only option there for Vidit was to step forward with the king. But either way, our world number one does start out his tournament run with a victory here. And for Vidit, he will fall down with a loss early on. That's round one of the day. We have 5 more rounds to go in our round robin as these two players take their time to wax and wane on the happenings in their game. Let's go ahead